My name is Bruce Berman from Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. I'm here tonight to help facilitate a meeting of the Metropolitan Beaches Commission, which was conceived in the Speaker's office, along with and Senator Bob Travellini's office in 2007, and has, I think, been instrumental in helping DCR to be more responsive and to improve the region's public beaches from Nahant to Nantasket. We've learned one important lesson. As a general rule, if it even looks like the Bruins could be in a playoff, we're never going to schedule anything during that month. But that said, thank you all for coming out here, proving once again what anybody that knows you knows. What, you know, from the Chamber of Commerce to the kids in the playground, everyone in Winthrop loves their beach. And so how about a hand for all of you for being here tonight? I'm not great at acknowledging all of the local electeds that are here. So what I'm going to do is, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask our local commissioner to come up and just give me a hand and introduce, you know Barbara Bishop, to introduce who's here from the town.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming. First and foremost, Speaker of the House, Bob DeLeo. And then we have our town manager, Austin Faison. I'm sorry, State Representative Rosalie Vincent from Revere, who's our chair of the Metropolitan Beaches Commission. Where's Ron Vecchia? Oh, okay, Ron Vecchia, our town council president, is here. And Linda, his wife. Thank you for coming, Linda. And we have Phil Boncory, councilor at large.
And it's important, like father of Commissioner Boncory.
And father of Commissioner Boncory. And Tani? Okay. Tani Marinovich is the president and CEO of Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, which is putting on this Metropolitan Beaches Commission meeting tonight.
To say hello, Tani.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, Barbara. This is our 8th beach meeting, so we're excited to hear what you have to say. Oh, sorry. Jace.
Sorry. And I just want to point out that Commissioner Jason McCann from Hull has been at all of the hearings so far. And I think it's not just because we go out to dinner afterwards, but because he wants to understand the challenges that we all face from Nahant to Nantasket.
And our great staff at Save the Harbor with Chris Mancini, our Vice President of Operations, Elise, Trevor, you guys just want to raise your hand, give a wave. Shaquan, who else? Kristen and Elise.
I want to thank everybody for being here. And if you don't mind, before I introduce the speaker, I'd like to just, in fact, I'm not going to introduce the speaker. I'm going to say a few words. This is an amazing community. I came up an hour early, largely because I was worried that I would get caught in a traffic jam coming out of Charlestown today. I wouldn't be the first. And I drove the beach, and I drove the town. And I have to tell you that I was a little jealous. It's a spectacular place, in good weather and in bad. We're having a nor'easter today, and you know, in May, and we had a nor'easter in Revere last summer. The weather's getting stormier. The community is substantially safer than it was 5 years ago, thanks to just extraordinary investments that would not have been possible without the speaker. And frankly, without the steadfast support of the Beaches Commission and its co-chairs, Representative Vincent and Brendan Crichton, who I want to point out was at one point in the House. So I'd like Representative Vincent to say a few words and to introduce her favorite speaker, Bob DeLeo.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, I'm the rep from Revere, America's first public beach, but since we're here in Winthrop with the Speaker of the House, I'm sure that Winthrop comes maybe second public beach. But seriously, I just want to say, I want to thank, I know that Bruce alluded to the efforts of the speaker, but working in the House with the speaker, I can attest to the fact that every time there's a meeting, he cares about the beaches, he cares about the cities of Winthrop and the cities of Revere, as well as the entire Metropolitan District Commission and all the beaches. He's been an advocate during the budget. There is no greater advocate for the town of Winthrop than our speaker, my friend, Speaker DeLeo.
Thank you very much, Rosalie, for those very kind words as always. And I think that you did a pretty good job also in terms of making sure that not only Revere, but Winthrop and all beaches in the greater Boston area are cared for. And I want to thank you for your work in the House as well. To all of you, welcome, and this is a great opportunity for us, and it's interesting to note. I think I was probably back in the Board of Selectmen with Ron some years ago, and we were even talking about the beaches, and it's great to see that we finally have come to fruition where we have a beach that we can be proud of, and that's what's wonderful about our work in the town, our work up at the State House, and having a guy like from Save the Harbor and Bruce Berman here as well to support all of our efforts. First of all, congratulations to Tani on her recent appointment as president. President, okay? Okay. I don't want to confuse with the other presidents that we've had, like Peter Gill and Ron Vickier and whatnot, but I want to congratulate her. Also, I have to sincerely thank Bruce Berman. Bruce and I have worked a number of years together on a number of 30 to be exact. And it's interesting to note that every budget time he and Patty would come into the office, I guess you'll be coming in now, to talk about what can be done and what we can do.
We're set for this year, right?
Huh?
We're all set for this year.
Yeah, you were in the House, yeah, of course. What we can do, again, to make our beaches more attractive. Now, first of all, I'd like to think, hopefully, that when we talk about beaches and we talk about clean water, you know, what has happened relative to the MWRA and keeping our waters cleaner, for instance, what has happened in terms of upgrading and the investment that was made in our beaches. And I'd be remiss if I obviously didn't thank obviously none of my colleagues in the Senate and obviously the administration for their support in providing the necessary funding on Winthrop Beaches as well. But Bruce was there all the way. But in addition to that, we as a coastal community, when you talk about Winthrop, one of the things I think, one of the biggest selling points that we have in our community, you know, are our beaches, you know, quite frankly. We live in a beautiful community, a community that we're very proud of. So it's so important that we make that type of investment in our beaches, and I'm glad that through the work of Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and through the work of the folks that, again, at the state level and local level as well, we've been able to do that. So to all of them, thank you. To the folks in the community as well, thank you. Thank you for your patience. One of the things that I had stated when when I first became a state representative some years ago, before being a chair, before being Speaker of the House, that this was going to be one of my top priorities. It took me a while, but I'm glad to see that we were able to get it done. But with that now, I think we have to make sure that we take that next step, that, you know, we're able to keep the beach in good condition, that in addition to that, we're also able to make sure that some of the programs that are inherent with having a beach, whether it's, you know, a canoe or kayaking or the movies on the beach with the ever popular items that we do through the help of Save the Harbor, Save the Bay with their investment, that we keep those types of enjoyable things that make Winthrop such a very, very special place, and having a beach in our community such a very special place. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for your input. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Berman. Thank you very much.
One more quick piece of business. Commissioner Susan Hamilton, who represents DCR, is unable to be with us tonight, but she's asked Christina Doctoroff, who's been a fan of Winthrop and also a planner at DCR for 20 years, to join us as well, in case we have any questions. I just want to say one thing. The one thing that we've heard in every community is that the men and women of DCR do their best to do a terrific job for all of us. So how about, if you don't mind, a quick hand for our friends at DCR. Oh, and by the way, I also want to say that the person who's attended the most commission hearings since their inception, with the possible exception of me, Commissioner Carol Haney of Revere. I also want to point out that the money that we give away comes from two sources. One is, in partnership with the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and thanks to an appropriation by the legislature with often the support of the administration. But a large piece of it comes also because we freeze our fannies off in the middle of the winter, jump into the water to raise money, and Carol has taken part in every splash since its inception. And I just want to thank you for that as well, Carol. Where'd you go? She's here, I promise. Okay, she'll be back momentarily. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go through a presentation, a top level, just to sort of remind you of where we're coming from and to let you know what we hope to accomplish and how we hope to accomplish it tonight. Let's do it. I'm going to be as brief as I can, but if you have any questions, I'm going to be here for the duration, and if you think they're important, you can interrupt me at any point. Please do. Okay? So, as many of you know, the MBC, the Metropolitan Beaches Commission, was created by the legislature in 2007. It's currently co-chaired by Senator Crichton, who can't be with us tonight, and Representative Rosalie Vincent from Revere. The mission is to conduct an annual review of the Commonwealth public beaches in Lynn, Nahant, Revere, Winthrop, East Boston, South Boston, Dorchester, Quincy, and Hull, and report findings and recommendations to the legislature, the administration, and to the public. In that regard, and Andrea will remind you about this at the end of the meeting, on Saturday, we're going to be presenting our preliminary findings from the local hearings at a regional hearing in South Boston. If you'd like to join us, we'd love it to make sure we got it right, but if you don't or you can't, we'll certainly make sure that you get copies so that you can send in comments, and there is an online survey as well. Keep going. We can skip this, but that's the name of we have commissioners, elected officials, and also community representatives in all of the communities. So we can move on beyond this because we'll get ahead of ourselves. In 2008 and 14, we issued major reports on the state of the beaches, and we'll be doing that again this summer based on the round of hearings that began last August in Quincy, in which you've been steadfast in attending, Madam Chair. The two reports are available online. The first is called Beaches We Can Be Proud Of, and the second is called Waves of Change. We're not certain what the third report will be called, but I'm sure it will be clever and appropriate. Let's go. I want to point out that many of the accomplishments of the Commission would simply not be possible without the leadership of the legislative members and the legislative leadership. In many cases, the same. With their support, we were able to secure $20 million actually to continue, $20 million in the 2018 environmental bond bill for the next phase of capital improvements to the metropolitan beaches. We also secured $20 million to help communities that were still facing persistent pollution problems, Quincy and also Dorchester and Lynn, address those problems. As the legislative members and our commissioners know, those funds were authorized but not appropriated yet. And so, appropriated and not authorized, one or the other. They haven't been spent, although they remain available for the appropriate projects. And we're hoping that we'll see some requests this year. Next. So, with the support of the House, the Senate, and with the support of the Baker-Polito administration last year, the Commission was able to secure $1.235 million for the Metropolitan Beaches line, which included money for staffing and maintenance of the region's beaches. It also included $190,000 of which we distributed $210,000. I want to point out a good investment to support Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, Better Beaches program partnership with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. I also want to let you know that you will be shortly informed of the decisions for this year, and we're looking forward to seeing you all in early June when you receive checks. I know there were several from Winthrop. At the risk of stealing anybody's thunder, I believe we're funding them all. I don't know if we're fully funding them all, but we're funding them all. This year, we were glad to see that the governor recommended a modest increase to DCR's budget, a $2 million increase. And that he also included a modest increase to his base proposal of $908,000. We also appreciate the fact that the legislature, in its wisdom, the House already, and hopefully the Senate, will next week, we'll find out, we'll actually raise that back up to the 1.235. And when we started this process of hearings this year, there was some uncertainty about the revenue numbers and some anxiety. That anxiety's down somewhat right now, and that's good news, I think. We hope that, that when the budget is finally passed by the House and the Senate and sent to the governor, that he'll do what he did last year and sign it and not veto any of it or cut any of it, and if not, we'll take it from there. So, next. There are some issues that we never would have thought that we would be dealing with. And you guys know what some of them are. I mean, who would have ever thought that 5 years ago, the most pressing question that we'd be dealing with was how to better manage Plovers so people could use the beach. And who would have thought that we'd be here today talking and trying to prepare some recommendations to DCR about how to manage what seems to be a large number of unexplained marine mammal deaths that have unfortunately resulted in not only some serious threats to some species, including the right whale, but also have presented a challenge for our friends at DCR who have to figure out what to do and how to pay for it. One thing I think we're pretty sure of is that they shouldn't ever be buried again on the Metropolitan Region's beaches. But on with that. Let's flip to the next. So there's currently a piece of legislation proposed to ask the Department of Conservation to come up with a policy. To help inform that policy, there's a hearing in the State House on the 4th. That'll be one of the 4 topics that are discussed. Next, Shaquan. So there is some pretty damn good news, pardon me for using the word damn, but Winthrop continues to have extremely good water quality. And as the speaker alluded a while ago, we weren't absolutely certain that we would ever get to the point where we are today. 97. Now, I taught at BU for 15 years. We don't grade this on a curve. You take the number of tests, the number you pass, and the number you fail, and you calculate a percentage. That means 97% of the tests passed at Winthrop. And that's an A in any book, and it's very good news. Let's go. So, as the speaker alluded to, and as all you know, there are some terrific events on the beach every year, and Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and DCR are proud to be able to support them. We're particularly glad to hear that people feel that free programs and events are important. Kayak lessons and canoes, festivals, talks, bring people to the beach. They get them to experience these resources, and that's how you fall in love with them, and frankly, that's why people take care of things, because they love them. So, among the more popular things that we did, and I don't know where I heard this, but it's always good to bring circuses wherever you go. Last year we were able, in partnership with the Circus Guild, to bring a festival featuring aerialists, acrobats, trapeze artists, as well as traditional, beach activities, art on the shore, fishing 101 to communities, and we will be doing it again this year in partnership with our friends in Winthrop. I want to remind you of what we found in 2007 briefly, and then what we found in 2014, because for 2 reasons. First, to prove that I can read the little tiny type. No, I can't. We'll go to the next slide in a minute. but for two reasons. One thing that is astonishing is that in the past, issues came up, they were resolved, and new issues come forward. So I was very heartened to hear the speaker say that, it's important that we keep the focus on the beaches. Hopefully, it makes it easier for our partners in the legislature and in the administration to make these important investments in times when there are difficult decisions to make. So, we're not going to go through the old findings because we are interested in what you think today. But if you look at where we were and where we are, you'll see a difference. Go to the next one. And there's copies of this presentation available at here as you guys do your discussions. Go on. Most recently, there was concern about sand, plovers, quite a bit of concern about trash and debris. There was concern about raking and cleanliness. There was concerns about weeds taking over some parts of the beach. And there was a desire for important capital investments, the most important of which was the completion of Winthrop Shore Drive. Let's go. You can pop forward. So I know that one of the things that we're going to hear about tonight is piping plovers, and we asked last time for the Department of Conservation and Recreation to find a way to protect the birds and improve access to the beach for both people and the equipment that's needed to maintain the beach. And so in 2017, they made a request to the federal government, and it has been tentatively approved. And that said, I walked on the beach today, and I noticed that in the past where there were entryways that had been blocked off, where there was fairly aggressive signage. I see it's going to be something we're going to talk about. I've seen that there is evidence of more flexibility, and I think also the public comment period on the change is just ended about a month ago. So when the feds say yes, I think you'll see a change. But that said, it's a challenge for all of us still. Keep going. And the irony isn't lost. They like the same place you do. So, I also took a drive on Winthrop Shore Drive, and I was shocked to discover we're having a nor'easter in May. I mean, the waves were up, the wind was up, the tide was high. The sisters were dramatic. I miss Shelby Scott. It wasn't raining hard enough. There wasn't any snow on the ground. But I do want you to know that this past year we cut the ribbon, the speaker cut the ribbon, and Senator Boncori and many of the others in this room were there on the completion of the Winthrop Shore Drive project. There are a few items left on the punch list. Work, continues, I think, but most of it's done, and I think that it will serve this community well. And I think that, that the steps that we take for coastal defense, coastal resilience, and frankly, to plan. These are critical steps. Winthrop's way ahead of the curve on this. There are other communities that are at substantial risk because they didn't pull together to find the resources to make it happen.